Western Spain television. Ours it is.
Drums and trumpets are still blaring, proclaiming the achievements and successes of the Adeleke administration on all fronts. As the organizers just celebrated the May Day by endorsing Governor Adeleke for a second term in office, his administration has scored another goal by propelling Osun State from a bottom of the ladder position of 33 to 7th in the internationally recognized public examinations conducted by the National Examinations Council, NECO. The implication of this feat is that in 2 years, the state government has repositioned the education sector to meet the requirement of standard, quality control, competency in administration, conducive environment for teachers and students, all of which have rubbed off positively on the image of the state. The NECO ranking is totally one of the many enviable marks which have trailed the education sector since Governor Ademola Adeleke took over the reins of power in Osun State on the 20th of November 2022. This is episode 25 of your weekly sectoral review program of the Adeleke administration, and we are glad to give an update on the sterling performances of the State Ministry of Education in reversing the hitherto ugly phase of education that has the hallmark of 12 years of mismanagement of human and material resources of Osun State by 2 previous APC administrations from 2010 to 2022. My name is Tomilola Daniel, your uncle.
Our administration shall deploy all legal academic means that will put the state within the first 10 before the first tenure expires. We are poised to implement the recommendations and outcomes of this summit to later. I think the governor deserves a round of applause for that.
The Education Summit, organized by Governor Ademola Adeleke in the early period of his administration, navigated the best way to tackle the myriad of problems created by the chaotic education system he inherited. Today, the reforms of the public school system and the shifts in its administrative concepts have battered a new beginning in education that is reassuring and futuristic. The Education Ministry has been challenged to tackle the fundamental problems created by indifference, disconnection, lack of priority, mismanagement and teacher-government disenchantment, and social malaise as well as parent-teacher disequilibrium. Today, public-funded schools are coming back to reckoning and in the process attracting patronage from hitherto disenchanted parents and students. Teamwork, which was elusive for 12 years, has returned in public school administration because the state ministry has made it a cardinal goal. It has thus been possible by the ministry to engender cooperation and commitment of stakeholders such as Parents Teachers Association, Board of Governors, education agencies, and Teachers Union to confront the inherited challenges from the roots. Today, the endemic problems of indiscipline, hooliganism, cultism, truancy, teachers' lack of faith, and misappropriation in the public school system have been addressed frontally. The Education Ministry, according to its Commissioner, Honorable Dikbo Eluwole, who told Living Spring Update that education has been made easy in Osun State because Governor Ademola Adeleke has mustered the required political will to turn education around.
It is as a result of teamwork. My team in this section, they did tremendously well. And all the stakeholders in the education sector, they really help us to achieve this feat. I want to really thank the Old Student Association of different schools. They were doing a lot of things to help the government of Osun State, the PTA, the Board of Governors. All these schools have all these organizations. And to crown it up, the activities of the governor. Mr. Governor took education as one of the cardinal principles, and he faced it squarely. That is why we are able to do what we are doing. Without his political will, we can't move education to anywhere. Last year alone, 3 times education instructional materials were distributed across the state. Last year alone, I would say that more than 60 students were tested, and they discovered that 42,000 of them were visually impaired, either short-sightedness or high-sightedness or other high-related issue. The serious, that is the chronic, many of them almost blind. The chronic one were taken to the hospital, taken care of. And those that are mild are given first aid, and they were all given, 42 people were given reading glasses. You can see them, beautiful ones. So all those things help us to achieve such outfit. And more so, there's a peace in the schools. Before the federal government take up safe school, safe school, safe school, it has been in Osun State from the beginning of this administration.
The state government's consistent interventions in meeting funding and logistics demands of education culminated in 3 tranche supplies of education materials in public schools in 2024. The Adeleke administration took a step further in the health of pupils and students through a comprehensive diagnostic assessment of visual impairment and supply of corrective eyeglasses to 42,000 products of public schools. This is an intervention that the 2 previous APC governments ignored, to the detriment of pupils and students whose poor performances were linked to their poor vision. Today, teachers and students have waved bye-bye to incidences of violence in public schools because the state government has provided avenues for peaceful learning and interactions between and among teachers and students. Honorable Dipo Iluwole anchored the success of his ministry to government support to make discipline the first law in school management.
That is why we can't get vandalism, hooliganism, thuggery, Philippine in our schools. There was a peace environment, and teachers were being disciplined. Students were disciplined, and in a disciplined environment, there is a learning. So those are our success story, and our team in the ministry, they took it as if it is their own job, it's their own business to help the government. They perform their duty. In fact, there's nothing they don't do to make sure we reform the education standard in Osun State. That is the reason why we are able to achieve such a feat. And all those things that I'm telling you, they are fact-check. We are talking of the Malaysia issue. This is the document to collaborate it. This booklet were given to us, was submitted to us with a letter 2 weeks ago by NECO, informing Osun State that we are now in number 7 in WAEC NECO rating, according to the last year performance. And our boys and girls were rated differently. Boys is number 10 in the federation, while girls is number 6. But boys and girls together, Osun State as a body, we are in number 7. Fact check, this is a document to show that. So, with all this, it is not a magic. It is just a physical issue that we can see. Then our teachers have been trained periodically, and they were trained in different subjects, in their subjects. There is a new narrative now. And how do we go about it? What causes it before? The policy of government take us to that level. When government said, okay, they want to build mega schools, they merge schools together. So the pupils that are having schools beside their home before, they now have to transport themselves far away before they can get to the school. And being a peasant farmer, petty traders, civil servants, the parents, they can't cope, giving money for food and had transportation with it. Look at the Osun line. The transport, the vehicle they provided for schools when they know that the schools are now far to the students now. I don't know where they get all those carcass vehicle. Carcass. We use a lot. How many months do we see it on the road? It's not when they were in the government, the past administration. It is not on the road for 6 months. They just park it in this. So we continue repairing it now. Huge amount of money. Many are abandoned now. We decided, okay, better if we buy a new one. That will be better. And again, those schools that have been far to them before, the old one that are abandoned, we are renovating it. We are taking the children back to the place. So therefore, the school is now nearer to their home. So many of them now come back to the school. And again, throughout that section, Osun is the only state in the whole federation that are still feeding the pupils. School feeding, homegrown foods. To the extent that the federal government sent delegation for a whole week. They were in Osun to understudy what we are doing here. When they see that, cannot Osun doing it, nothing comes from federal government to sustain it. So to make sure we change the narrative from being the home of out-of-school children. So, and by the grace of God, the situation now changed. Many pupils, last section alone, over 12,000 pupils new enrollments were achieved in Osun. Over 12,000. You can see.
This year has witnessed a spirited move by government to tackle out-of-school children that gave Osun an unenviable tag of belonging to states where the menace became a troubling issue. The state had a high turnout of 150,000 out-of-school children by October 2024. It was a byproduct of years of mismanagement of the public school system. The Adeleke administration, on assumption and in line with the recommendations of the Education Summit, took measures which include reactivation of the moribund school transportation, reinvigoration of the free meal program, and other incentives, all of which have drawn students back to school. Osun State now records over 12,000 new enrollment in public schools. The ultimate goal of government is to sustain the existing progress and create a benchmark for an education sector fit enough to meet global standards. This optimism is now shared by the ministry, which, according to the Permanent Secretary, Mr. Muritala Jimo, is expected to provide a plank for the state government to fly the flag of Osun State to greater heights. The past 2 years have seen the ministry attacking the challenges bedeviling the education sector from a strategic back-to-front approach, reduction in examination malpractice, remodeling the administrative structures of TESCOM and SUBEB, direct engagement of government with teachers, and activating the lost spirit of cooperation between all Nigeria Conference of Principals of Secondary Schools, ANCOPS, and political party holders in the state have done the magic being witnessed currently.
Though before we go there was Education Summit that was organized in 2023. And it was meticulously put in place to, see microscopically what are the challenges that are facing education in Osun State under Professor Yusoji Aremu. A seasoned educationist from University of Ibadan. He was the chairman of the committee, and we look at different areas. Where do we have these challenges facing education in Osun State? And there was, an open program. We launched it at Uni Osun. We ended it at another place here in town. And a lot, people submitted memos, to the committee. And a lot of memos were treated. And we look, and that is where we came from. We saw that there are problems, there are challenges on ground. How do we solve it? How do we tackle it? And that is part of the approach that we use. And the recommendations that came out from that summit was submitted and a white paper was approved out of it from the report of the, and there we now, as when Mr. Governor approved the white paper for implementation, so we now take it one by one, and there are different areas: renovation of school, remuneration of teachers, the training of teachers, and a lot more. From there, and even the reorganization of, like we are using the district system before. We have 3 districts. But according to the recommendation of that summit, we have to reverse back to TESCOM model, which is having, tutor generals in 6 zones of the state. So we now have executive secretaries, tutor generals in our 6 zones, with 1 permanent secretary at TESCOM, working together with the commissioned board members of TESCOM. So these and many other things that were not in place before are those things that were packaged together to ensure that, we have this. And the implementation, is a different thing to have a program, a plan, and another thing to implement that plan. So the implementation of that plan, one by one, little by little, from 2023 has taken all this far to this achievement. And that is why, part of the achievement that we have, that we had, is reduction in examining malpractices, right? Though you cannot eliminate it in its entirety, but the Ministry of Education is ensuring that we carry along schools, or let's say there is an indictment against any school by WAHEC as an examination body, or NECO, right? We invite the school. Why did you do this? What happens? Give all the report. Then we look at it, right? In the office of the commissioner himself, we address the teachers and principal of that particular, be it private or public. Well, we know that they are components of the education system in Osun. We don't push them aside. All these and many others are those things that we achieved, in ensuring the fit that we have achieved to be in place. And, we are sustaining it. Sustaining in the sense that, it's another thing to be up. Sustaining that where you are, yeah. And there are a lot of factors that are responsible. And we are looking back. Because when you don't look, if you are only looking forward, you don't look back, you will not complement, because the two complement, each other. Now, that one, we look at what made the education system to fail in the past, right? Part of the thing is that, without, the ANCOS president is here. There is discord between, education partakeholders in Osun State then. We don't, there is, when you have Cold War, yeah, what I can refer as Cold War, but we try to settle that amicably. And we now interact. We now have an improved relationship. Because when you have, in any system, when you look at computer system, you have software and you have hardware. You see hardware, but you don't see software. Software is working in the background. So what is working for us in the Ministry of Education is what we are doing in the background, right? And is now coming to the forefront that people are now seeing the result. We are doing a lot at the background, which people don't see. And that thing that we are doing at the background is more, far, far more than what, but, NECO is a national exam. It's an international exam, right? Not only here in Nigeria. They do take it in the Republic of Benin, Togo, Saudi Arabia, and so on and so forth. But, with our performance, right, from 33rd, now 7th position. It doesn't just leap there. It was a result of what we did, right? By looking at where are those areas that we didn't get it right, And like I said, that during there are so many things, the revamping education, doing it right. And to the glory of God Almighty, we have seen where we are.
Recording all these remarkable feats is not an early walk to victory, but a result of unequaled determination by government to succeed. The Adeleke administration believes in prioritizing discipline, teachers and student welfare as core factors to achieve stability and progress in the education sector. The state government is of the opinion that challenges cannot be totally eliminated. It, however, believes that rising above the challenges is not impossible. The successes currently being witnessed did not come overnight. It happened because Governor Ademola Adeleke and his team believes that education is the pivot of development and is determined to keep the flag flying. That is today on Living Spring Update, episode 25. Join us again next week. My name is Tomilola Daniel, saying bye for now.
Western Spring Television. Ours it is.